Well, hi everybody. My name is Alex Burson. I'm just, for the most part, your average 38-year-old guy. There's a few things that are different though about me. Uh, the biggest one just happened to me 3 months ago, um, when I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, which very abruptly changed my life. I would definitely say for the negative, but there are some positive spins that we'll get to later. But more so, I want this video to be about anybody who's part of our age group and generation who is going through something, especially a health thing, even more specifically a cancer thing, and needs to find inspiration and a way to get through it. And I want to share that information by sharing my story and what I've been going through and what I've been doing to get past it and some tips. So that's the reason for this vlog. Um, and I plan on doing more that'll be focused on cancer and cancer centric vlog, if you will. Some background information. I have worked everywhere from the restaurant industry to the office desk job. Um, I started working in restaurants when I was 16 years old, and I'm 38 now. And I worked at one restaurant for close to 20 years called Il Giardino, on and off, definitely on and off. My restaurant experience extends into me even working at my own restaurant that I owned for 2 years. I won't get into that; it's a little too long of a story for this one. But I've spent a lot of time working with people in the culinary and food industry. But I've also done in that a lot of marketing in my life. I have a business degree, and I've done more recently been developing my own. More recently, is in the past 2 and 3 years, business, which does social media marketing and management for small businesses, and website development. And I can also do things like business planning, uh, uh, contract agreements, business partnership agreements, operating agreements, any kind of legal business documentation, things of that nature. So basically, if you have a problem with your business, Version Business Solutions was the solution. So enough about the professional side, but those were the types of things that I was doing with my life before all of a sudden I was diagnosed with stage 3 adenocarcinoma cancer, which is going to bring me right into what's going on with me and the prognosis. So let's just start from the top here. I've always had acid reflux my whole life. Was Because as far back as my grandfather on my father's side, who I recently found out also suffered from severe acid reflux. And by severe, I mean it was bad, so bad that I would have to sleep at an incline to prevent acid from running up my esophagus, to not wake up in the morning with acid in the back of my throat. And I would do what's called aspiration, which is when your stomach acid hits the back of your throat and you inhale it in your sleep. Well, that causes a lot of pain, I'm sure one can imagine, in your lungs and your throat and everything else. So this problem kept happening, and I kept thinking to myself, well, it must just be reflux and family stuff and stress, because I was going through a very stressful time in my life, transitioning out of the restaurant industry. And my mother had just moved into an assisted living facility after a bipolar manic, wasn't a manic episode, more so than a chronically depressed episode. I don't want to make this a sad podcast about her or really family. It's not what it's about. It's about inspiring, but these are all things that led up to me believing that it wasn't reflux. It was just reflux. I was just pawning the idea off as, stress, moves, job switches, mom. That's why I'm having this reaction. Well, eventually it got so bad that I couldn't eat anything or drink anything, not even water. And this went on for a month. I would drink water and attempt to eat, and it would get lodged right here, my solar plex. and I would attempt to drink, and I would throw it back up to the point where I was starting to be anemic, and eventually said enough is enough already, and I went into the hospital. And by the grace of God, I had a wonderful intake doctor who believed me when I told him that I can feel that this is something that is much more serious than reflux. Because when I would speak to a doctor, anybody who is a medical professional, it would just, oh, it's GERD. Just give him Prilosec and send him on his way. And I told him, I said, this needs a better look. So immediately he says, I think his words were, we're gonna expedite the process, and I'm gonna elevate you to go get an MRI of your abdomen and your solar plex, so we can see what's going on in there. Well, the tone immediately changed with the nursing staff in the ER and everything, because it went from kind of a casual, nobody cares type of situation to, wow, okay, we've got a situation here. So I get my own room. The ER was packed, but they put me in my own room, and they took me into the MRI table, did the MRI. And you want to talk about things getting serious quickly? The doctor who initially had, not the intake doctor, but the doctor in the who was seeing me in the room, went from, we're going to get this MRI, and we're not going to see anything, to his face sunk and said, we've detected a large mass in your esophagus. It looks very suspicious. We don't know what it is. And we won't know what it is until we can get an endoscopy done on you. And in case you don't know, an endoscopy is when they take a camera and they put it down the back of your throat, and they get a real close look at everything that's going on in your chest, stomach, and wherever else they need to go. Um, and Virginia Beach General wasn't fully equipped to, well, they are, but they felt that I needed to go to Centera Lee in Norfolk, because they are, at the time and still currently are, they specialize in gastrointestinal diseases and cancer. This thing looked cancerous to the doctor in the MRI. So immediately, and I say immediately, but really it took 2 days for me to get transferred. That's pretty quick in hospital time. I was transferred to Centera Lee, wonderful hospital, and I got the endoscopy. Now, the this happened, I would say, within 48 hours of being admitted into uh, the surgery floor of Centera Lee in Norfolk. And remember, I had gone into the hospital initially. This was 4 days ago now. I'd gone into the hospital for being anemic. I was starving. I hadn't eaten anything in a month because food was getting so lodged in my throat. It was being blocked by the cancer. So, because I was having an endoscopy done, they don't allow you to eat anything besides clear liquids. So, whereas I was, and currently am, able to drink Ensure and milky type substances and soups, things like that. No, only clear liquids. And I could also eat hard candy. Well, they made the mistake of telling me that, because somebody who's starving to death and was borderline anemic, what did I do? I got my aunt, thank you, Kitchy, to get me Jolly Ranchers, lollipops, and everything that they had given me a few of at the hospital. I got big old, ouch. I mean, you have to remember, I'm starving to death, and the little bits that I could suck on to gain his calories while I'm waiting for the endoscopy to clear up, I was going for. I was starving. It didn't cause any problems, thank God. Just thought it was funny. Anyhow, they go and do the endoscopy, and I come to out of this haze, and I'll never forget the look on the surgeon's face. I mean, as plain as I'm looking at you right now. In fact, with less humanness about him, and you have to kind of be that way as a surgeon because if you become emotionally attached to your patients or you show them any of that emotion, that could probably lead to a slippery slope. But like robotically, he looks down at me as I'm coming to and says, "Well, after further examination, we are certain now that you have cancer, esophageal cancer, and I'm so sorry to tell you that." And before I could even mutter out anything, he turns his back, walks back into the surgery room, and I'm being carted off back upstairs. And it's about 3 or 4 floors up. Nice 10-minute push from some guy behind me. I'm in a hospital bed, and I'm fighting everything not to just bawl my eyes out the whole way back. I just found out for certain that I had cancer, and I thought this was all reflux a matter of days ago. Keep in mind that was at the timeline. Now we're 3 4 months in, so that was over the course of 4 days there, and I stayed in the hospital after that. I immediately saw an oncologist who came in, wonderful oncologist. I'll show you her picture here. Her name is Dr. Koch, Kok. Wonderful. So let's see here. Where's she? All right, so I can show you this. So this is these are the results back from the endoscopy. Read the release notes. A large hmm, a large, near completely obstructing malignant esophageal tumor was found in the lower third of the esophagus at the gastroesophageal junction and in the cardia fundus, which is part of your stomach. Biopsied. And these are the pictures. We won't get into them too much, but yeah, that's cancer, man. Okay. 95% of my esophagus, and still is not, probably closer to 90 now, but 95% of it was blocked by the cancer at another time. Anyhow, she's a wonderful woman. She is one of the heads at the Brock Cancer Center. She doesn't specialize in esophageal cancer, though. She specializes in breast and I believe liver cancer. Esophageal is very rare. Only about 5% of all cancer cases are esophageal, and even more rare for a man of my age. They're mostly in people who are in their 70s and cigar smokers their whole life. But it does happen for people in my age group, um, typically due to genetic predisposition, which was the case for me. My mother and my sister both had familial polyps in their colon, and from what I've been explained, um, that manifested for me in my esophagus. So, needless to say, go get checked out for go get your colonoscopy, go get screened. If you feel like you have something going on, go get checked out, get it early. Early detection is everything with cancer. Most people who are diagnosed with esophageal cancer have so much problems because it's such a late diagnosis most of the time. Most people are diagnosed at stage 3, and that's when I was diagnosed. I have stage 3A. 4 is death. I mean, certain. 3, we're not gonna, we're not gonna, I'm not gonna die anytime soon. Um, Soon, be it in the next year, I hope. But we're gonna fight through this. I'm gonna make it and fully cure. That's the goal. It's all about the mindset. So that was the diagnosis part, and the whole coming to the realization of what was going on with me, and anyways, back to being seen by the oncologist. She wanted two procedures to take place. First one was she wanted, and I obviously needed to have a feeding tube put in. The feeding tube clearly for feeding and also administering medications through my stomach, right through the stomach. Skip the esophagus, right into the stomach. So, without getting too graphic and getting naked for you guys, I have a feeding tube that comes out of my stomach, which I eat formula, which I have a handy container right here called Jevity, and we use a feeding syringe of all sizes, medication for medication, um, to eat through and drink through. If I need something to drink, it's actually easier now because or something to eat because I don't have to chew if I don't like the way something tastes or whatever. Forget it. We can go right through the tube. It's quick. It's easy. I guess that for whatever it's worth is a small benefit of having the tube. Um, so yeah, there's that. And the second procedure she wanted to have done is what's called a Mediport, which I don't have to get too graphic with it. This one's not that bad. Now it was placed in here. Now this lump you see is attached to two lines, which I can feel tracing here. They go up over my clavicle and then down into my heart. Okay, and that is for administering treatment drugs such as chemo or immunotherapy. Um, and I started on immunotherapy. Uh, let's see, it's been about a month now. Two 1 week ago, I was stopped from immunotherapy because my immune system was having an adverse effect to it. I have uh, it's not a problematic immune system. It's an immune system that's that of a young man. It's strong. It's much stronger than most people who go on immunotherapy treatment. Um, Immunotherapy is like the number one um, way to treat cancer. It's new technology. Not every type of cancer in person can qualify for it because a few things have to be in place. The person has to be healthy enough for it, and also the cancer. More importantly, the cancer has to have a type of protein found in it that will allow the immunotherapy to target it. That way, it doesn't just float freely through your body and attack whatever. So, I was lucky enough to have not only one but two proteins that they could target, and that paperwork I do have together. And I was on this right here called Opdivo, which you may have seen a commercial for, and the other one was called Yervoy, and I don't know, I've never hadn't until this heard of that. So that's what I was on for immunotherapy, and it worked well until I started really developing terrible diarrhea. By terrible, I'm not don't want to get into it. Really bad. And on some blood tests, which I have here, my liver levels were off the charts. And by off the charts, I mean it was clear to the doctors because of my white blood cell and red blood cell count that my immune system was attacking my liver. I had elevated white blood cells, meaning that it was my immune system was in overdrive, and red blood cells, which are sign most cancer patients do have elevated red blood cell size and count, but this was that of an injury or a cancer patient, which I have both and both. When you get immunotherapy, you get these cards here that you can turn into a hospital because you have to be treated differently when you're on immunotherapy. Let's say I went in for a fever, right? And they didn't know I was on immunotherapy or was unable to tell them, um, they may treat me with antibiotics when my immune system is just fine. And it's just the treatment, not a bacteria that's attacking me. So they give you these types of cards. Apparently, it's a thing now that people fake having cancer and blog about it. So I like to show evidence. Not that I need to, but um, yeah, that's a thing now. People are monetizing and selling they have cancer, and you know, uh, just ask them for their oncology card, and that'll discredit or credit anybody. Medical card, whatever. Anyhow, so where was I? Um, so that was why I stopped the immunotherapy, um, and where we're at right now. So that was where the whole trace of treatment went until 1 week ago. And on Monday, which will be day after tomorrow, I'm going to go in for another endoscopy, and they're going to check to see how the immunotherapy while I was on it, what it did to the mass in my esophagus, see if it shrunk it at all. And we are definitely moving on to chemotherapy. The one I'm going to be doing is called Folfox 6 modified. And not to get too technical on you, but it is very low. It's not a harsh chemo. It's not that chemo of the 80s that you hear about where you lose your hair and you start throwing up blood and things like that. Uh, it's expected to be little to no hair loss, little to no nausea. In fact, it causes constipation versus diarrhea. Pretty low impact. The only thing about it that I'm not really looking forward to is none of it. No, I'm not looking forward to any of it, but it's a necessary thing. The part that I don't want is that I'll have to wear a device for 2 days after it's administered, which is about the size of a cell phone or a Walkman for those old enough to know what that is, strapped to your hip, which is attached to the Metaport I pointed out. And I wear that for 2 days. Then I can take it off, go about my life for 2 weeks, go back in, have them redo it, 2 days, rinse and repeat, and we're back to seeing how that does. So that's where I'm at with treatment. As far as how I feel, honestly, I don't feel much different other than the side effects of the medications and the treatments that I'm doing. I still am unable to swallow and eat things, but I don't walk around with like this cancer malaise of, oh, I'm weak and things like that. Sure, the immunotherapy, the diarrhea, the nausea, the anemia, things like that, they do cause you to be a little bit lethargic. And I am in some pain from having a mass in my stomach. Not to mention the feeding tube goes right through a major abdominal muscle, and I get muscle spasms and things. So, there's some pain medication that is graciously prescribed and needed um, for cancer, along with a little bit of added anxiety. So, it kind of takes the edge off. You, I don't have, I'm on a low dose. I try to take it moderately. So, in moderation, rather. Um, just a couple of useful tips for those who may be going through something similar. Something that gives me real peace of mind is setting up my surroundings to be efficient, because I found that if you're all over the place and you're flustered and things aren't together and efficient, it's going to just kind of compound on itself and snowball. So keep your stuff organized. Like, for instance, I have this medical bag, right? And all of my medication, all my feeding supplies, everything that I need for whatever it may be is here. I don't have to search for it. I keep things clean and ready to roll in here, and I'm good. I don't have to go digging through anything. I can take this anywhere with me. One of the first things I bought when I came home was this leather recliner because I knew that I'd be spending a lot of time resting. I knew I needed to be seated upright for not only the reflux, but um, I needed to be not just laying in bed, you know. And this thing lays all the way back if I wanted to. And I went out and bought a laptop because let's say I had to go back to the hospital, which at some point I may, for months at a time. I want to have a laptop and be able to go about my life and enjoy things. I'm a kind of a PC guy. I ran that business marketing company or my startup, and I'm still doing a little bit of that, but things are slowing down because I can't keep up with a growing uh, client base. I was aggressively going after clients and new leads and things of that nature, but the loyal friends and clients that I have are a few guys now, two or three, and you know, money is definitely things are tight. I got a little bit of assistance early on and had a little bit of savings, so I was able to buy the few nice things that I have. But in building a business, there's a lot of expenses, and I before even being diagnosed with cancer was struggling to, kind of make ends meet and get on my feet. I knew once things would take off, I'd be good because I had a very good base, a good idea, and a good established growing thing that came to a abrupt halt when I was diagnosed at the worst possible time for those life changing transitions. So, um, what why I bring this up is because I have a GoFundMe, which hopefully a lot of my viewers have seen, and the link will be in the underneath the vlog to assist me with all of these types of expenses. My goal right now, currently, is to have my own transportation so I can get to and from doctor's appointments while I'm still able to. And not all doctor's appointments you're even allowed to drive to and home from. Um, for instance, the endoscopy, I'll have family helping me, but it's a lot. I mean, my folks are old, or when I say old, I mean 70s and 80s. So, and my aunt helps out, and she's also in her 70s. Um, Friends, everybody has their own life to live. I I want to be independent and cause as little impact and problems for others as possible. I really, really want to have the freedom of driving again, and I need a car. And I have growing expenses that are getting crazy. Food uh, costs are astronomical, and even more so for me because I'm having to eat specialty things now. Um, my expenses are elevated because I'm having to Uber, I'm having to order out, I'm having to get prescriptions. I have 3 doctor's appointments a week. There's copays. Um, the list is endless. I'm having to get medical supplies like a strap to hold up the feeding tube, cleaning supply. It's endless, right? Just like everything in life. And without the growing client base, without some help from you guys, which many of you graciously have, I would be I'd be in some trouble. So for those who have donated, thank you so much for giving me hope and inspiration to cling to life and continue this. And I do this all for you, and I do this all for those who care enough to listen. So that's going to be the conclusion of the vlog today. Um, and I do hope to do a lot more of these, and we'll get into more specific topics eventually as things in time progress. I'd like to start discussing more off cancer and off doomsday type situations, and maybe be inspiring in other ways to other people. So, with that, we'll end it. And thank you for listening.